Welcome to a brew video. Today, doing a saison with Brett. Brett is going to be in the secondary, just a saison strain in the primary. It's going to be on the hoppier side, using brew 1 hops. I said brew I in one of the videos, but it's brew 1. Some sort of experimental hop. Contributes aromas of pineapple and stone fruit, backed by a soft spice. So I think that sounded great for the saison strain. And a little bit of Huell melon. Huell melon is more on the strawberry side of things, but combined it'd be interesting. I think with the saison strain, I think it'll go well. Grain profile is pretty simple: 2-row, little Vienna malt, and some flaked oats to help with the body a little bit. The mouthfeel, I think this is going to be a little bit on the thin side. The saison strain can tear down and get pretty dry. Brett can also do the same thing. Gonna use this puppy. For those who did not watch my last video, or one of my last videos, was it my last one? I don't know. But I did a whole unboxing of this fermenter. I have since read reviews online and seen people use videos of them. Big problem with this thing early on is that when you go to open this valve here, let me get out. When you open the valve after it's done fermenting, like so, you can suck in a bunch of oxygen. We don't want that. So what I'm going to do is when it's done fermenting on primary, I'm going to put tape or somehow hold down my CO2 tank, fill it with the headspace of CO2, and keep the CO2 tank running while I take off the yeast. And I will then just go directly from this bottom into 2 different 1-gallon jugs for my secondary. I'm also using a saison strain because it can go in a little warmer temp. The one I'm using is the Belgian Saison 1. Can go in about the high 70s degrees Fahrenheit. That's where I'm at right now, my ambient air roughly throughout the day. I have no way to keep this cold, so huge reason why I'm doing this. Brett can also handle a lot of heat, so it's a perfect thing to do right now before it gets too hot. For Brett, I'm going to use the WLP 648 White Lab strain. And the 648 is the White Lab's Brettanomyces bruxellensis Troy Bray. I always say that wrong, and no one's corrected me yet. Troy Bray. The other jug, the other secondary, is going to get dregs from Spanish Cidras. I harvested dregs once from a Cidra. I made a beer from it, and I tasted it. I'll link that in the description below if I can find it. I don't remember where I tasted it, but it was somewhere on this channel. Pretty good if I recall, but kind of weird, musty, funky, odd. A little appley even. So I'm just going to take 2 Cidra bottles, maybe 3, drink them first, swirl up the dregs, pour them in secondary. And that's it for the Brett secondary for that. For those who don't know, Spanish Cidras can be really funky, very, very Brettanomyces forward. Spanish ciders, they let the natural yeast, whatever's on the apple skins, ferment that beer. Or ferment the apple juice, I should say. They're my favorite ciders, hands down. You get some really cool, fun flavors. Lastly, this video I'm dedicating to my friend Rob D. You know who you are. He's probably watching this right now. He's a big fan of my videos, one of my best friends. He's not a home brewer, but he keeps texting me how much he loves these videos. And I'm going to dedicate this one for him. I know he has 2 beautiful little girls. He probably just put them to bed right now. And daughters are sucking, so he probably muted the TV and pulled up this video. This one's for you, Rob. I'm adding some gypsum here. It's calcium sulfate. Helps with bitterness a little bit. Also, calcium is good for the mash. It helps the enzymes convert. I also add a little bit of sea salt. I love this pink Himalayan salt from Costco, Kirkland brand. Sea salt is sodium chloride. Sodium helps with a browner sort of malt profile in smaller amounts. Higher amounts, you're going to get like salinity, salt-like flavors. Like Goses have high in sodium. So why I'm crushing this up, Rob, is I'm trying to open up these little kernels here of grain, crack it open, and these are flaked. You don't need to mill those usually because they're already ready to go. But these little other kernels need to be cracked open so the starches can become exposed, essentially, and the enzymes that are in the malt can then break down the starches. And a certain water temperature range gets you there. So around 150 degrees Fahrenheit, between 160 degrees Fahrenheit, somewhere in that range, the starches become soluble, enzymes get to them, break it down into sugars. It's a sweet wort that way. And then what we get is a nice crushed, somewhat powdery mixture here. Credit card width on the rollers is what I do. I can probably get away with going a little smaller because my batches are not as big as others. But the smaller you go on those rollers, the more powder you're going to get, and the probably harder it is can actually mash. You might get a stuck mash that way. But I pretty good efficiency on a pretty tight crush. So I don't know, I might experiment with that in the future. But for now this is working. Gonna add some lactic acid to this, and that is to get my pH to around 5.2, and that is to help with the enzyme conversion. Also a little too high, you might extract some tannins if you're above like 5.8 on pH. I'm a little warm, 2 degrees warmer than I was intending. No big deal, I'm still within the range. So the lower the temperature, the more drier beer you might get on paper, because the lower temperature cleaves off, the enzymes cleave off smaller sugar chains, so the yeast eat that more, and it gets drier beer, ferments down more. Higher mash, around 158 degrees Fahrenheit, tend to cleave off more random bits of the sugar chains, so you get longer dextrins and a sweeter, maybe more mouthfeel beer that way. That's basically how the mash works. Alright Rob, you may be asking, why'd you hold the mash for 60 minutes? That's about how long it takes for the enzymes to convert all the starches into sugars. Fermentable sugars, I should say. But Jason, what are you doing right now? What is this? Just clarifying the wort. Some people just run it right off, which I've done before too. There's a screen underneath here, a little bit of space underneath it, and the screen traps all the little particulates and clarifies it out. It's called lautering. Alright Rob, you may be asking, what are you doing right now, Jay? What is this? It's what's called a fly sparge, a weird version of it. Normally it's a little thing that rotates, or people sprinkle their water into it. But anyway, as it's running out, keeping about an inch of the wort above the grain bed. So as you run off, you want to maintain that consistency until you collect your volume. I'm doing a cold fly sparge. Most people do it warm. I found my little cold fly sparges have been working out pretty well. I did about 85% of my mash water first, and then the rest is this fly sparge, which is something I've been playing with, so here I am. I have to get this to a pH of 5.2. Why am I doing that, you ask? 5.2 is the ideal range for like protein break, which helps stabilization later on, although I'm playing with that theory with a raw ale I did recently. The other one helps with hop utilization. The higher the pH, the more utilization. But above 5.2, you might get into like harsh, more tannins with that hop utilization. The lower the pH, like below 5, gonna get less utilization, but maybe a better, rounder bitterness. So 5.2 is a sweet spot. That's what I go for. Something I've been doing recently more often. So it's at 5.5. I'm gonna add 1 full milliliter of lactic acid and see what it gets me. Brewosophy did a really good experiment on wort pH where they did 5.1 and one at 5.4, a triangle test on it. Fascinating results. I'll link that in the description below so you can see it. Wow. Usually it takes me a little more to get to where I want. I'm at 5.2. $10.49. I was going for $10.50. That's about right now so far, around 75% efficiency. When I held the temp exactly the whole time, and I did a hot sparge, I was closer to like 78, 79% efficiency. Also, Rob, the numbers mean, just so you know, when I say 1050, 1049, that's the sugar concentration in this. So if you have 1.000, that's no sugar. It's like basically water. The higher you go, 1.010, 1.020, the more sugars there are. You know, you're looking at like a barley wine or a double or like a triple IPA, your sugars are like 1.090. Rob, hope you're having a good time watching this right now, and hope you have a beer in your hand. And that goes for everybody else too. So why I'm adding hops at 60 minutes is because I extract the alpha acids out of that, which the they could become isomerized, which means they kind of restructure essentially, and you get your bittering part of the beer that way. The longer you boil, the more bitter you get. Upwards of about max 90 minutes, then the bittering pretty much maxes out there. You know, if you do a bittering addition at 20 minutes, a lot less bitterness you're gonna get. But now you know, Rob. Now you know. So Rob, why I'm turning off the boil to add hops is it gets a little more flavor, a little more aroma that way. Since it's not in the boil, all that bittering stuff that happens early on in the boil doesn't happen as much, especially at a lower temp than 200 degrees Fahrenheit. You're 180 degrees Fahrenheit and you're getting a lot more flavor and aroma. All the IPAs that you love and enjoy are whirlpooled. When you say whirlpool, a lot of time they'll like swirl it around and sink all the gunk to the bottom. So then when they transfer off to the ferment, they leaves it all on the bottom. Now that we boiled down, we got a higher concentration of sugars. So let's see what the sugar concentration I got was. I was going for 10, 60, 1 or 2. My volume was lower than I expected, more boil off. I have a feeling it might be higher than that. But let's see. 1064. So that's totally acceptable. Yeah, so from here on out, once this is done steeping for 15 minutes, I gotta be very careful about contamination. I gotta chill quickly. I got ice for that, and I got this thing called an immersion chiller. Most home brewers have these out there. I pump cold water through this, and it sucks out all the heat of the wort in like a really quick amount of time. Yeah, let's just say that 15 minutes has gone by already. Pumps around the coils, and then out. And when this water gets low, then I put the water back in so it circulates on ice water until it goes down to my target temp. Pitching temp for most yeasts is around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, depending on the strain. Lager strains are closer to 50 degrees Fahrenheit. But Rob, the saison strain can go higher. It's like 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm going to pitch it around 75 degrees Fahrenheit. From here on out, keep everything very sanitized. I use what's called Star San. Sandy Clean is one that you can also use. This is nice though, because you just squirt it on. Everything you want to be sanitized. Let it sit for about 30 seconds. It's like a high acid sort of wash, essentially. Let's see what temp we're at. It's been about 5 minutes so far. Don't sneeze or drop it. I'm at 2.3 gallons. That's totally fine. I'm going to probably lose a good, probably almost a half gallon trying to take off the yeast when this is done fermenting into this jar. So I'm planning to end with about 1.8 gallons, and then I will separate that into 2 1-gallon jugs. Now, some people would aerate this a lot, and why you do this, Rob, is because the yeast needs oxygen to grow and metabolize and all that good stuff, so they can eat the sugars and convert that sugar into alcohol. Sometimes people put pure oxygen into it with an oxygen tank, which I have. I haven't been doing that. I think the pour I did just now was fine. I'll give it a swirl too. I've been getting really good results not using the O2 tank. So, but you know, if you have a gravity of like 1090, you know, of the sugar content, probably do it then, maybe 1080 even. But 1064, right in the bubble. It's a good idea to sanitize this too. Better be safe than sorry. All right, I got this sanitized, and I know from past these old vials that White Labs used to have, the company. So I'm gonna go for about 30 milliliters if I don't spill everywhere. Which I am. Looks to be about half the packet. But for a 2.5-gallon batch, that should be just about right. And I give it a swirl. Okay. I'm good with that. Lid. And we're done. Today is April 15th. I plan on posting this video tomorrow. And this should be done fermenting in like 10 days is my guess. I think this is going to tear through this. Looks like right now it's about 70 degrees outside Fahrenheit, but it's going to get a little harder this week. So that'll be closer to high 70s. Yeah, and then transfer to a secondary. So yeah, that's it for this brew day. I think all went pretty well. And Rob, I hope you enjoyed it. And get out there and brew a beer for a friend.